Good morning and welcome to the CADclass podcast. I'm Josh,
I'm Jake.
and it's wonderful to see your lovely faces. I'm seeing some comments here, so I want to say hello and a good morning to PC Van Vliet, number 1 on the stream, Spitfire, Maple Leaf Makers, Ogre,
All the
Sam, I saw
usual
pop in there,
suspects.
Cadence, Dairy. Oh, dude. And we had
Popping
some
off.
actual Twitter chatter. I don't know if you saw the Twitter chatter, but
I
Maple
did
Leaf
not.
Makers shouted us out on Twitter. I didn't get a chance to
Thanks very
respond.
much.
I am sorry about that, Maple Leaf Makers. They had a question for us about constraints. So,
Okay. We'll be
Andre,
getting
maybe
into
we
a
can,
lot of that today.
yeah, maybe we can chat a little bit. Jake, and actually, coincidentally,
Shut up. That's terrible. You can't do dad jokes if you're not a dad.
We just
That's
launched
just
a
kind of how that
video
works.
today on constraints, on a tangent constraint, not coincident constraint. So maybe not coincidentally. I like that one. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I do dig that, like, some of the constraints and some of the kind of very basic fundamentals of CAD. Some of them are very obvious, like parallel, perpendicular, and I appreciate that as, like, yeah, it's very obvious what it does, but it's also important because, I mean, a short will be coming out next week about it, where it is truly one of the first places in CAD where people are now no longer just starting brand new on a new type of program, and they're very hesitant and they're kind of like wading into the water. And it's kind of one of the first places in learning CAD where you're like, oh, I actually do already know this. I know what parallel is. I know what perpendicular is. And all, like, because nobody knows what coincident is in real life. Like, nobody uses any of these terms. Maybe people will remember tangency from their, like, time in school, but usually not. And so it's a really nice, I call it the respite. It's the respite area of CAD. And and kind of tangent is one of those things where it's like, yeah, you may kind of remember it a little bit from school, but here's a really easy example for people to kind of understand. So hopefully we'll be going through all the constraints. Funnily enough, some of them I never touch whatsoever, like at all. Like, I
Which ones?
fantastically rarely touch perpendicular ever, because it's just so easy. Because I'm rarely if I'm making an angle line, it's so unbelievably rare that I'm making another angled line that needs to be perpendicular to that one. It's usually, well, everything is just kind of 90 degrees and nice and straight, and I just make it horizontal or make it vertical. And then the other one is curvature. It's the very last one. It wasn't always there. It was added probably maybe like a year ago. I've never touched it. I have no idea what it does. And I'm just going to have to experiment with it because I'm like, I don't know if it's useful at all. I've never touched it. And then somebody in the Discord this week said, oh, can you make a couple shorts about joints? And I'm like, absolutely. I'd love to do that. Just like a bunch of different examples on, hey, here's what it does. Because it can be very confusing.
Was it Connie that asked for the joints? Man, extra shout out to Connie.
We're gonna have a whole section about Connie. Don't worry. Yeah. Connie's been absolutely going ham,
just crushing
amazing
it.
stuff this week.
There's a second person too, and we'll get deep into that too. But it's been Connie and it's been
Moses.
Moses.
Oh wow, utterly killing it this week.
Just so cool. Jake, I occasionally have to pinch myself because we put, as creators, as makers, as builders, you put things out into the world and you never quite know how people are going to use them, if they're going to get value. There's all these questions that circle in your head. And I'm looking at this Discord and going, I don't feel I could have predicted the consequences of putting a book out and having people share their stuff on Discord. But what I'm seeing come in is just inspiring. And I know that you and we touch base basically every morning. And our general mood is just like 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10, basically every day. Just like, this is so ridiculous.
It is kind
cool.
Of wild.
And ridiculous in the best possible way.
One thing that I really like getting to the point as educators, regardless of what you are, because we've been teaching woodworking, metalworking, welding, laser cutting, 3D printing, CAD for a long time. And when we see students making stuff and getting excited to show it, absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favorite things to see, because it's like, this is like when a kid shows you their painting and you're like, that's such a mind blow. That's amazing. And we're now getting to the point where people are developing such fantastic skill sets they're now showing us stuff that I'm like, how'd you do that? Which is
Yeah.
great. Like whenever so when I was learning wood turning and I was really getting deep into it and trying to like read every book at my library and watch every single video, like getting really deep into it. And I'm like, okay, at a certain point, I feel like I could reverse engineer every single segmented bowl, for example. I'm like, I can figure it out. And then I started to kind of dive deeper into the really kind of funky, on the brink of what wood turners can do. And I was looking at projects and I'm like, I can't figure that out. I don't know how they did it, genuinely. Because people are making like interlocking toruses and just turning it on the lathe. I'm like, how? How do you even start to do that? And just unbelievably complex stuff. But then going, okay, well that's great, that's wood turning, but I'm a CAD person. And I'm now seeing projects that I'm like, how? How did he
Yeah.
figure that out?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. That's
And
so amazing.
Connie absolutely wears that
Wow.
hat right now.
Wow. Wow.
Good
Wow. Wow.
lord.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
stoked to show that off.
Yeah.
Really quick, Connie. So I asked you for your CAD or for your Fusion file, just so I could kind of go over it. I have on purpose not opened up that file. So I have it downloaded and I actually want to
Nice.
go through the file on this podcast
Nice.
because I have a feeling that there's lots and lots of really, really creative bits and pieces into it. And I just looked at the timeline really quick, and that is efficient as hell. So I'm really, really excited to go through all that and just show off all the fantastic stuff that you guys are making because it's just such a treat every single week.
So Jake and I have been doing some research on upcoming book, and there's a possibility that it will be on shape for robotics.
Yeah,
And I was
a very high
interviewing.
likelihood.
So I'm interviewing coaches that are winning world championships or state championships or regional championships, and just figuring out what they do well, what they need, the CAD side of things that could help them, right? And one of the recurring themes is that the coaches, even if they're engineers and even if they have their own firms, are like,
Mhm.
these kids do things and I have no idea what they're doing. So one of the
Which is
things
great, which is the best feeling in the world.
which is honestly, as a teacher, what you want. And one of the things I
Mhm.
think that separates a great teacher from a good one, a mediocre one, or a bad one, really, is that a great teacher is able to recognize when a student is able to excel far beyond what you have to offer, and
Mhm.
and then connects
And
them with other
encouraging that.
folks and encourages it and connects them with other folks in the industry that says, hey, I'm at the limit of my knowledge. I don't know what it is that you're dealing with now, but here's where I'd go if I were you, if I wanted to learn
Mhm.
more. And they recognize that the teachers succeed when their students outdo them. Probably the same
Yeah,
is true of parents, right?
I think
So
so. Yeah, I think so.
no, it's very
Speaking of parents and teachers, just as a really quick aside, Josh, have we told have we told the podcast about our pickleball seller? I don't think we have.
no, and
Okay,
we got an update from him yesterday
yeah, I
too.
know. Okay, so
Did we tell him?
obviously,
Maybe we did, but tell him anyway. Tell him again.
really quick recap for anyone that's new. So we have so obviously we teach, you guys the program, the course, all that good stuff. But we also work with schools, charter schools, homeschools, etc., where people or where kids really want to get into 3D printing. They really want to kind of kickstart engineering, hands-on stuff. And obviously, the progression after that is okay. I want to design my own stuff. I want to get into CAD. Fantastic. So very often we get parents saying, "Hey, my kid already has a 3D printer. Can they kind of skip over that course and get into CAD modeling?" And it's like, yeah, absolutely, get into it. And most of the times they'll just follow the program. Great, learned a lot, fantastic. And every once in a while, we get kids who will then start designing their own stuff and selling it, which is amazing in its own. And we have a student who is he 9 years old? I
9.
think he's not. I think he's 8 or 9 years
9.
old,
Mhm.
and he is selling little things that he designed, little 3D printed keychains that are pickleball themed, and uh, and he told us about it, and we're like, oh my gosh, that's fantastic, that's so cool. And so he was saying, oh, my mum does pickleball, and all of her friends have bought it, and the kind of initial reaction is, well, okay, that's just a very cute kid is selling something, and so all the parents buy it. That's not unheard of. Like all of the Girl Scout cookies is built on that.
You're 12. Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And then she said, no. I have a friend who has a storefront and they're just selling it at the very front. So the cute kid factor is no longer part of the equation. It's now just the product in a storefront being sold. And she's like, oh yeah, he sold like $500 worth of it in a couple weeks. what? That's insane. That's actually ridiculously insane. And then what was the update that we got yesterday?
I'm just actually just pulling up my phone right now because I wanted to get it basically word for word.
Because it
Let's
is like the
see
numbers on
here.
it are
Here we go.
absolutely fantastic.
So,
Make sure you
which is
redact the name.
yeah. So, he
It
sold more
is
pickleball keychains at a tournament this weekend and was approached by a local business leader interested in him personalizing them for her employees, between 1 and 300 of them. Hence, him needing to learn other things, right? So, he not only has he sold them individually, which is amazing, but he's now selling them at a storefront, and he's now being approached by other store leaders. So this is like a
this
classic
kid's
example.
8.
He's 9,
That's he's not fine.
but he's
But this kid's 9.
9 years old.
I wasn't doing
Unreal.
this. I
Well,
was
what
still
was I even
selling
doing at
lemonade
9?
for a nickel.
I don't even know what I think I was. Yeah, lemonade stands were a thing.
Lemonade stand.
I wasn't even mowing lawns for like 2 years, like
No.
11 or 12, I think, before I started mowing lawns. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's
Well,
amazing.
Dad
And I
trusted me
think
with
what it makes me think of is just how big the opportunity is in 3D printing, right? It's not the final
Yeah.
solution for everything. It's not going to solve
No.
all problems, right? There's a lot of hype around it, and I don't know if you've been seeing the basketballs go around, but I'm tired of seeing them
Yeah.
already. I'm like, this is.
I
I mean,
I'm
it's great that it's being adopted by the masses. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
But come on, like this
Yeah.
is not the application for 3D printing that I'm most interested in, right? I want to see the things like relativity space putting a rocket into space. But
Yeah.
that said, the sky really is the limit. If you're an entrepreneur at home, if you're a micro entrepreneur, as like we like to say, right? You don't have to think
Mhm.
huge. You can think small and
No.
niche. And one of the things that we tell people is if you have a hobby, there is certainly something that hobby needs, right?
Mhm.
There's something
Something with
around that
high
hobby
specificity.
specific to what it is. Like the keychains that he's making have the phrases that are pickleball phrases, like "dink it."
Yeah.
I don't play pickleball, so I don't even know.
Yeah.
I can
like,
imagine what
okay.
that means, but I don't really know what that means, right? But the point is like if you've got a hobby of any sort, there is definitely an audience hungry for something you have to offer, and it doesn't have to be all that complex. It just has to
It
be
can
kind
be
of
a tool that
narrow and
you already
specific.
have. Like
Totally.
coming from the wood turning world, if I designed a little jig to cut on the table saw to make like perfectly sized trapezoids that end up making the parts for a bowl. And I need a little depth stop that needs to be really super accurate. So we just designed this little thing, took a couple iterations, and we end up selling like a couple $1,000s of it on eBay.
Yeah.
And it was like a couple of months going out the door. It took no time to print, no effort
time.
we didn't even advertise it. And it
Yep.
was just, I'm like, if we actually did spend a decent amount of time on that, that'd be fantastic. But we're like,
Yeah.
we got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, and I think you and I decided
can
at
see
one
that for
point we
everyone.
didn't want to exactly. Well, like we decided we didn't want to be the product people. We wanted to be
Yeah.
the educators behind it, right? We want to
Yeah.
empower other people to do that because it turns out I don't love selling products. It's
No.
not really my favorite thing to do. But I do love teaching, and I do love helping other people, especially
Mhm.
entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
in like getting something off the ground. So I love to see it. Our charter school students are crushing it.
They are
I
doing
love
it
it.
so well. It's
Love it.
it's really really fantastic. So yeah, exactly what you're saying with the
So
robotics teachers. It's like they make stuff and you go, "How have you done such a
what?
fantastic
How?
job?"
Who? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
Let me see if I can find the Maple Leaf Makers question on Twitter here. I want to see if we can answer that while he is still here.
All right.
Alrighty, CAD
Give me
class.
the-
Any tips? So I see it right here. I'm gonna try to share my screen. Let's see if I can figure this out. Share screen. Maple Leaf Makers right here. See if we can see this. So
I got it.
this
Ooh,
is looks like the maple leaf, right? It says, already
Uh-huh.
CAD class, any tips for can you see it?
Mhm.
Okay. Any tips for fully defining 6 bajillion splines? And then you can see we have this long little, we have some suggestions down there. Maple Leaf Makers, if you're in here, let us know what solutions you came up with as
Mhm.
we're working through this. So Jake, take it away.
So what you have or what I'm seeing right here is obviously the outer gear in black, and then a bunch of series of concentric circles that are also black. that means that they are fully defined. Anytime you have something that's black, it means that its size and its location are known. If you have a rectangle that is 2 inches by 3 inches, but it's just kind of floating in the space and it can kind of move around anywhere, it isn't defined, it isn't locked down. Similarly, if you make a circle where the center of that circle is at the origin, which is the only fixed place in the CAD universe, where its size is locked down, but its diameter can change, then it is still classified as being undefined. Some CAD people call it underdefined. Same idea. So as soon as you can have both of those factors totally locked down, fantastic. Then it will turn black. It'll be perfect. Really quick hint for anyone that doesn't know this: if you go into the sketches in the side of the dial or in the browser, where you click the little triangle and it shows you all the sketches in it, if any bit of geometry in there is undefined, it will have a little pencil icon, meaning that it can still be edited, it can still be written with. If everything is completely defined and are you good to go, it'll have a little red padlock. So look for that anytime you're doing your sketches. So for this one, I'm seeing a mixture of black and blue lines. Side note, that outer circle, the orange, that means it is an undefined construction line, or in this case, a construction arc. So for this one, you can imagine defining all those angled lines for the gear on the outside. That's fairly trivial. That's not too bad. But all of these arcs, you can see that, like that top angled line to the top of the leaf, those are just straight lines. But then if you look inside it, they're actually, quite a large radius arc to it. That's a nightmare to define, because you have to define the locations of the endpoints and then the radius, and it's a huge amount of data. And then you have to then double it to get the other side. So it becomes manic very, very quickly. And this is obviously something where it isn't important for it to be dimensionally accurate. It just has to be artistic, because it's a logo or it's an icon or a cartoon or anything like that. So this is where you'd want to use the fix constraints. That's a little padlock near the end of the constraints list. The idea is that if you have any geometry that is either free floating, where it doesn't have a location, or its scale isn't defined, then you can click it, that line or arc or anything will turn green, and it is unmovable. Not only is it defined because it can't be moved, because it's concreted in place, but also its size can't change.
So what if you want to scale it up? So Maple Leaf Maker says, let's see, the lock wouldn't, the goal was to scale it up.
Goal is to scale it up. So you can do a 2D scale, I believe. Sure. Let me check really, really quick.
Yeah, you can pop into Fusion here, and
yes, you can. Yeah, you can do a sketch scale. So if you go,
sure, I'll stop mine. Share your screen. Let us see.
All right. The entire screen. All right. So I've just got a normal sketch opened up. So if I just make a rectangle and then a circle inside, and I'll just add on some general constraints to it. I'll just make sure that the circle is at the center of the rectangle. There we go. And I'll just add on some definitions. I'll say, yeah, it's 25, and that's 50. I'm making all these numbers up. 30, sure. All right. So if this is all defined, then I can actually scale that. I just need to go into Modify, Sketch Scale, highlight the entire thing, and then I need to select a point that is actually moving from. So if I want it to expand from that corner, then I can select the point is there, and then I can say, I actually want to double it, and it increases in size. Now, not only is it actually still growing from that one position, but now I've lost all my definitions, because it is now no longer defined at all. It is completely movable. So you get the
so can you definition? So the question is, can you scale it if it's fixed? Can you still use that?
I don't think so.
If you try it, let's see what happens.
Let's try it.
So if you were Maple Leaf Makers, what would you do?
I would actually. That's a good question, actually. I'm trying to think. So if this is a fixed project, I'm actually going to just highlight the entire thing, fix it, and then I'm going to go into sketch scale, highlight all of them. Oh, it won't even let me highlight it. Fascinating. Yeah, okay. So you actually aren't able to scale it.
So Maple Leaf Maker said I ended up just extruding it into a body and scaling the body.
That is actually what you do. So turns out that the 2D scaling will actually throw you off quite a bit. But if I were to extrude this, just like 10 millimeters, for example, into the final 3D design, you can then go into modify and say, I'd like to scale it. Then you can actually scale this object. Again, it's looking for a point. Where is that point, actually? It says one selected. Oh, just on that top corner. That's fine. Then you can just say, yep, I would like to double it. And then it is technically fixed in the sense that the geometry is locked down. But I think that's what
it's
I
interesting,
would do.
right? It's so, let's think about this for a second in terms of design flow. So when would you scale something as a sketch, and like how would you think about scaling something as a sketch versus scaling something as a body?
I wouldn't scale a sketch. Like as you can see, it is a tool that exists. But if you are changing the scale, then it means fundamentally you have a scale to begin with. You're going, oh, it is at 1 inch by 2 inches, and I want that to be tripled. That means you already have a starting phrase. What I would do instead, and this would really only work for realistically on more simple models, is I would actually drive that parametrically. So I would set one of my parameters as a scale factor. So not a units or a unitless number, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. And then for all of my dimensions, you can just set, this would be 5 inches wide multiplied by the parameter name for the scale factor. And then boom, it's now 4 times as large. And then you go, oh, I actually need that to only be 2 times as large. So I'm going to change that from 5 to 2 in the parameter, and then it goes back down to whatever value you want. I've done that before, and it actually gets very confusing very, very quickly, because if you accidentally set it, if you set it as a unitless factor and you multiply it by a unitful? Unitless? Unitful? What the hell is the opposite of that? A unitful value. 5 millimeters.
No, not
that's
unitless.
No, there's no.
I don't.
What's the opposite of unitless? Unitful. I think it's unitful, but nobody would ever say that. What's the opposite of unitless? Unitful, surely. Anyway, if you try and multiply a unitless scaling factor to a unitful dimension, it'll actually give you an error, which is very, very annoying. Similarly, if you try and divide something where you go, oh, I want a millimeter divided by a scale factor, it will also give you an error. You have to do a bunch of really weird around the corner kind of typing, where you literally have to say multiplied by parentheses 1 divided by millimeter, just so all the units are happy. And it's really bizarre, to the point where I highly encourage people to do nothing and just avoid it as a problem and try and find another workaround. And in this case, making it 3D and then scaling that 3D is going to be a billion times easier. It's just ridiculously easier. So, fantastic question, but my God, rabbit hole of a problem. Very annoyingly. Josh, I want to go to Discord and kind of show off some people's projects.
Yes.
Let's do it.
So Maple Leaf Makers, just FYI, so Maple Leaf Maker said the end result went into Blender and he made a nice animation on Discord. So Maple Leaf Makers is into Blender. We have got to get into Blender as well.
I have never done any Blender, but I've also never done any like animation stuff. That's a lie. Josh, you probably won't remember this. In the ye early days of YouTube, there was a massive trend among middle school boys to watch all these like stick figure animations, and they would do like karate and they would have like machine guns, and it was stupid and silly and boyish. And I remember there was like a website where people would make it, and it would literally be, oh, I need to move this leg that much, take a screenshot, just like it would be stop animation. And
Yeah.
all of us very quickly realized, oh, this is a ton of work. I don't want to do it. And then we would rewatch those videos where people were doing like backflips and ninja scenes, and we were like, wow, it's really impressive. So that is my the furthest that I've ever gotten into animation, and it's not much.
Right on.
Okay.
All
I
right,
think we
let's
should
let's
absolutely
show
share off
some
to the people.
amazing stuff.
All right. So I think first off, going into not 3D printing discussions, going into the challenges. Coming from Dairy. Oh, this just got posted. Nice.
Yep.
I've been trying to model this in my spare time. It seems like a good challenge. Can anyone figure it out? Ooh, that's a good one. Ooh. Okay. Ooh. I know how I would do it. I kind of want to. Okay, Dairy, we will do this on this pod because I will actually show you how to do this. But just give me a little bit, okay? All right, because I do want to show off someone else. Connie has been taking one of the challenges. I can't remember which challenge it was. But there's a very famous website and there's a very famous book that goes with it called 307 Designs, I believe. It's in one of the challenges on one of the joints. The idea is that it's not actually 500, it's thousands of very simple mechanisms with pulleys and gears and sliders, and it's just to kind of, you can shuffle them and watch a quick animation, watch a quick demonstration of it in real life, and it just kind of gets your juices flowing about how you can think to solve a mechanical problem. It is fantastic. The book is about that thick, but it's like $2. I highly recommend people get it on Amazon because it's a ton of fun. I flicked through it. Amazing, great ideas. I mean, it's super simple mechanical movements, but they start from like Da Vinci era all the way to a couple of years ago where people just figured out something amazingly simple and you go, how have we not thought about this centuries earlier? But regardless, so it looks like Connie found this, what seems like a very simple belt drive system, and then just turning it into this, there we go. Turning into this, what seems simple, this is not easy at all. Making a belt drive system is not something that you can do very easily in Fusion, because even though you can animate different belts that are moving in different gears, it doesn't actually move a belt whatsoever, annoyingly. And so making a belt driven system is absolutely amazing. So
I want to shout out
absolutely
I want to shout out Evan here. So Evan with the gold. Remember, books can be checked out at local libraries and purchased at local stores, not just Amazon. 100%, especially the library thing. Obviously the local bookstores too, but 100% agree with you. I love the library still, and I check out a ton of books at it.
I was at the library yesterday. I love libraries.
So
little maker spaces in libraries are I don't mean cute in a demeaning way. I mean cute as in it makes me so happy because it's an entire room of little desktop machines. It's not a huge table saw. It's not a huge laser cutter. It's a desktop model that really, if you can afford a 3D printer, you can very likely afford a little desktop laser engraver or a desktop CNC where it cuts wood or plastic or maybe aluminum if you've got good blades. And it's just really nice. It's very, very nice to see. But
and Dan K says, "What's the book called again?"
Oh,
I know it's in our. It's a challenge.
It is a challenge.
And I know we talked about if you actually open our PDF and you Control F for mechanisms.
507 movements. Is it?
Oh, it is called
507 mechanical movements.
Yeah. Yes.
Highly recommend going onto this. It is stupid simple of a website. It's absolutely came from like the 90s. But it's just got like super simple animations and just kind of shows off the original pattern of it. And I believe you used to be able to shuffle it to just show you, I want to see 312 or whatever.
Okay.
But it's got Yeah, absolutely fantastic. There's a book that showcases this in a little bit more depth, but it's lovely. It's really nice, and it goes through and it. Yeah, I love this website. It's great. It gives me lots of really fantastic ideas. But going back to Connie, look at this. Look at this motion study. For everyone that hasn't got to chapter 10 in the book or in the course, every one of these lines, or from the left side to the right side, this is essentially a timeline of movement. It's 100 steps, 100 places on this timeline that you can stop and change a direction. And the height in this case would be, this line would be 0 degree of movement. That would, or the top would be 180 degrees. The bottom would be negative 180 degrees. So each one of these lines is an individual movement and then tracking and then going back down. So this is unbelievably complicated. Connie, you're a madman. This is insane how complex this is. Look at how many pin slots there are. Dude, crazy, crazy, crazy. And so, yeah, like early concepts. I don't know if you guys can see this. So obviously 2 rotating gears, but then also every single one of these chain links has got a pin and then a cotter pin going through it. And all of these have joints. All of them. Insane. Absolutely insane. They did something similar to this earlier, where they're actually showing off that it's kind of an optical illusion. This is absolutely fantastic. Like, I've done belt-driven systems for different clients in the past, and they were like, "Oh, can you make the belt move?" You go, "No, sorry, you just have to imagine it." They go, "Okay," and that's kind of the end of it. The fact that you took that as a challenge is phenomenal, and so I totally want to go into the Fusion file and actually check this out because it is fantastic. I downloaded it this morning. Just really quick, just for everyone who's like organizing all of their projects and stuff. If like having all of your different folders is fantastic, having one called tests where you just do random stuff in there is absolutely fantastic because you don't want to care about where you're leaving the files or where you can find them. But yeah, having a little test folder is really nice. I don't really need this, but let's bring this up. Yeah, 507 movements. So not a massively long browser. You can see there's essentially just a single, what is it? Link? Yeah. The base, a couple slider joints, rotating parts, etc., etc. And again, the timeline, really nice and neat and tidy, not too long whatsoever. But then if you go into the motion studies, and we actually start to play this on a loop, you can see that it's just a little bit of a movement where it's only moving over one link at a time. And when you play this really, really quickly, it just kind of works. The illusion of it actually continuing all the way around is genius. It's doing the exact same thing. If you've ever seen those LED strip lights where it's just 4 LEDs and it goes blink, 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 blink. And then your mind just fills in the gaps and goes, oh, well, there's obviously movement to this. And then you think that there's an LED that's actually traveling. It's like, well, no, it's just, it's an illusion. That's how film works. Yeah, this is phenomenal. But you can, I imagine, yeah, that's a lot of joints going into this. So I'm not even going to attempt to make this, but Connie, absolutely blown away that you made this. That's phenomenal. Josh, give me your thoughts on this.
I mean, look, I feel like I gave my thoughts in the beginning. Obviously, the design is amazing. The what I think I've been continuously interested in with this project, and what we harp on the podcast every week is, if you want to get good at Fusion, you take time doing stuff like this. Not to say that you have to build this, but what's clear to me here is that Connie's going to master Fusion as intended by the book, simply because she's taking her time to go through these projects and really work them. And I think I know I talk philosophy every week, but if you want to get good at this stuff, then you just have to spend time doing it. And
at anything, to be honest,
you can't sit down and make this in an afternoon, right? This is something that's going to take you many, many sessions. You're going to be racking your brain. How do I do each of these individual parts? But what comes out of the other end, yeah, and what comes out is something that you get to do over a long period of time that makes you way better at Fusion than you otherwise would be if you're just working through as quickly as possible, trying to speed run everything that we're doing. And
Yeah,
again,
definitely.
no shame there. I think you can totally speed run the entire course and then come back, take your time and work through things. Give it some time, give it some effort, struggle, ask questions, pop on the pod, right? These are the kinds of things that make you a great designer in the long
Yeah.
run. And
Yeah.
I think that
I
applies to everything,
completely
right?
agree.
It applies to video editing, it applies to writing, it applies to anything that you want to do. Take time and do it for put a lot of effort in over a long period of time and you'll get a lot better. So Connie, huge shout out. I think not only that, but the other reason I want to shout Connie out is because this inspires other people. And
Mhm.
the thing that you and I wanted to create when we created CADclass was a community of people inspiring other people. And so
Mhm.
huge shout out to you, Connie. This is inspirational for everybody to see. And we hope that it forces people to aim a little bit higher. You can do
Yeah.
more, you can push yourself further, you can get better at this kind of stuff. We had Jake, we also had a recent person on Reddit shout us out, which launched our book
Yeah.
back into #1 in 3D printing. Super cool. I'm pretty sure
Thank you
that's
very
what did
much.
it. And the Reddit shout out was basically I worked through 100 pages and then I designed this custom case from scratch. And
For a power bank.
sometimes we get people coming in that are a little bit guilty. They're like, I never finished your book. Like, it was never the point to finish the book. Finishing it
That's fine.
isn't the goal. Getting better at CAD is the goal. And if what we've done is
Mhm.
allow you to make what it is that you want to make, and you
Mhm.
get to show that off to the world, that's a huge win. So
That's
love to
fantastic.
see it. Love to see it, Connie. That is not easy. It would take me a
No.
long time to do that. And what more is there to say? Keep up the
I
great work.
one thing that I do want to say, and this is not philosophical, this is more personal. I to everyone who posts stuff on our Discord and everyone who is kind of say, hey, I'm a beginner. I know this doesn't look perfect, but I'm still going to post it. And I want people to say, hey, this looks great. That takes a pretty decent amount of courage.
Mm,
I really appreciate seeing everyone's stuff on there is
yeah.
fantastic.
Yep.
When I
Yep.
was making stuff when I was a kid, when I was in like in middle school and high school, Instagram was kind of coming into play. And then like senior high school, everyone was on Instagram. I didn't post anything ever. I was just kind of Jake in the corner, very introverted, didn't post anything. But I was making stuff every single weekend that I was really happy with, that I was really proud of, and I never posted it anywhere. And it was literally only until the last couple months before I graduated that my sister said, "Hey, why aren't you posting stuff on Instagram? Just like build up a portfolio." I'm like, "Oh, that's not a bad idea for like college." And I started posting like all the stuff that I've made, and people that I'd never spoken to in like 4 years came up and like, "Oh my god, Jake, you do like woodworking and do like special effects stuff and props?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've done it for a while." And they're like, "Wow, that's amazing. That's so cool." And it was the first time that I was like, this is so strange. And I was like, oh damn, I wish I would have posted more and more stuff just earlier. And I kind of missed that train. I was like, it's a little bit of a bummer that I do regret that I didn't kind of showcase more and more stuff because I didn't think that it was good enough, or I didn't think that I was good enough or anything. And so kind of now that we have a bit of a showcase, a bit of a floor where we encourage people to show off as much stuff as possible as they've made, and we do see people posting stuff, it makes me really satisfied. It makes me really, really happy, especially when people are beginners and they're posting stuff.
Yep.
Because if you go into
Yep.
any forum on anything, whether it be Arduino or coding, you see people posting fantastic projects, difficult, complicated projects, and you're there just trying to make this thing say hello world or make this series of LEDs light up in a row. And that is so satisfying for you. But me personally, I absolutely have a reticence to then post this online, to post it on Reddit or to a Discord, because I'm anticipating a bunch of people to go, that's not difficult.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be proud of that because it's
Yeah.
so simple.
Yeah.
And I never want to have that culture in our space. I always want it to be very much we're stoked at anything that you do. Because if you've got 10 years of experience and you do something really difficult, that is as profoundly important as someone who is on day one and just made the domino, and that was a challenge. We could both make that domino, 5 minutes? And this person took an hour. That doesn't diminish their or how important, how fundamentally incredible that is.
Well, you have to start somewhere, right? I think,
absolutely.
and the thing to remember as an individual maker is that most people don't actually do things. And by that, I mean, most people aren't building things. Most people aren't 3D printing things. Most people aren't designing their own stuff. Most people are not actually putting themselves out into the world. And so if you're not getting any negative feedback, right? If you're not getting any criticism for what you're doing and people aren't pushing back, then you're probably
Mhm.
not showing off enough. You're probably
You're in an
not putting
echo
yourself
chamber
out
by
there enough.
yourself.
And because the second you start posting, like I know just the past couple of days, we said, hey, you shouldn't 3D print everything. And we put out a short.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of the blowback come in. People are like,
Yeah.
but what about people that love to design stuff? And I look at that and I go, thank you. Like
Yeah.
we need blowback because
Yeah.
it tells us we're out putting ourselves out there. So, and if you look at these people, Jake, it's really funny, right? Because if you look at them, they have like 1 subscriber, 2 subscribers. They're the sort of people that never put their own work out there, but are very happy to tell you how everything that you're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
So if you're a maker, try to flip the script. And if people are telling you anything other than encouraging things, just remember that
Mhm.
the likelihood that they're doing it themselves is basically zero.
Yeah.
They're not
And
out
I
there putting themselves out there.
and I think even more so, showing this off to people in your circle or in your workshop, if they are constantly saying, "Oh, this is great, this is fantastic," be wary of that.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
Josh, did
Yes.
you ever watch did you ever finish Breaking Bad?
No. No.
Okay, so there's a very famous scene. The one of the main characters is a young lad called Jesse Pinkman, and there's an episode where he is feeling a little emotional, and he harkens back to high school where he took woodshop, and the instruction was to make a wooden box. And he said, "Yeah, I made it really quick, and then I showed my teacher, who is this hard ass, and he goes, is this the best you can do?" And he was saying, and in the scene, he was describing it as it didn't feel insulting. It felt genuinely, is this the best you can do? And then it goes to him saying, "Oh, then the next time I spent days polishing it, this and that, and this and that." And I have also experienced that. I used to do lots of really fantastic wood turning projects, and I would show this one guy in our workshop. Sometimes he would go, "How did you do this? This is amazing." And then every once in a while,
Shout out
I would
Jerry.
every once in a while I would no, it was actually Israel.
Oh, was it? Okay.
And every once in a while I would show it to him, and he would say, "I know you can do better." And that's all he would say.
Yeah.
And it would be a little crushing for a second.
Yeah.
But then it would genuinely kind of it would stoke the fire, stoke the flames, and to get me back into it, to actually genuinely retry again, because I'm like, no, I can actually do better. And just to harken this back to what we were talking about earlier, if you put out a project and someone has a criticism of it, don't take it like this is a specific Discord about people who are actually actively building stuff. This isn't just out to the universe, to the blank void. This is actually two people who are in your group, working through the same projects. If they give you criticism, try not to get too
fuel.
Screw
Use
you,
it as fuel.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you
and
totally
I think
use it as fuel.
It's really
That's
easy.
a great way to put it.
It's really easy to anthropomorphize is not the right word, but you make something and it becomes an extension of you. And I think that applies to digital and physical designs. Is you put a lot of time and energy and effort into something and you form a kind of connection with it. And what happens very often, to your point, is that because you've got a connection, you can no longer separate the object from you, and you take any criticism of that object as criticism of you and not of the process getting you there. And I think the tricky part for makers is you need an ego to even make anything in the first place. So you don't want to completely get rid of your ego. You don't want to completely lose all sensation and feeling around the object. But you also don't want to take every criticism of the thing that you've made as some sort of personal criticism of who you are, right? It's a stepping stone to get to where you want to be in a lot of ways, right? You're going to improve yourself by improving this object. So there's a lot of connectivity between the two of them. But I think the difficulty is like step back for a second, realize that you are not that object, but that you did pour your heart and soul into it. Recognize the good and the bad, accept the positive feedback, accept the negative feedback that is actually propelling you towards your goals, and just keep going. Right?
Yeah.
Just keep going. It's like you can make it better. Everything can be better. So there's no reason not to do it. And I want to just shout out. So Darius says these podcasts have been great for my mental health. Cornelia says, fully agree. And that's honestly one of the best compliments you could give us, is having people, surrounding yourself by other makers, uplifting them, saying, hey, it's not always going to be easy. Sometimes you're going to get
Mm.
criticized. And that's kind of a sign that you're making progress in some important way, is that people are willing to even criticize you. It means you're putting yourself out there, right? That's honestly one of the coolest things I think anybody said on this pod. So shout out to you all. We hope we can continue to inspire and uplift and make you up. And then Evan Schwartz says, I've noticed people on Reddit often aren't fans of creators sharing their work on the platform, but this CAD community has been way more supportive than that general experience. Yeah, Reddit is a double-edged sword for us. Reddit has been tremendously useful for our business. The Reddit community has really swooped in and done amazing things for us, right? Like promoted our book and really
they were our original beta testers.
Like gave us the confidence
innovation grant
to
recently
actually do this, right? So lots of amazing things have happened to us on Reddit. That said, Jake and I have really struggled to find a balance with Reddit. We are either criticized basically off of the platform or promoted up into some high level of like, wow, this is the greatest
thing ever. It's very strange.
And there's nothing in between.
So it really is. It's so funny.
Be very, very careful with Reddit. There seems to be a type of like anger that's just below the surface. And it's very easy to get that anger directed at you. I know when we posted videos, we were basically immediately the equivalent of digitally thrown off the platform, right? Like shouted out and stones were thrown.
And it was the same. It was the same like education shorts that we post all the time. We're like, hey, do you know this tool exists? This is how you use it. People go,
so fine line with
not
Reddit.
How you use it.
I enjoy Reddit. Jake, I know you enjoy Reddit, but I find myself not spending all that much time on that platform. And trying to use it in very specific ways. So again, it's been great for us, like Sacramento community too. We were able to promote some of our meetups. They were free meetups and things like that. We were able to create some amazing community members around it. But it is a double-edged sword through and through.
I want to harken back to something that we talked about earlier, and that is kind of showing it off to people and getting criticism back from it. And I know this is something that you and me especially go through, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are definitely going to kind of resonate with. And if you make a project for so long, regardless if it's a wooden box or a CAD project that you're putting out to the world, if you spend long enough making it, by the end of it, you hate it. You absolutely hate it. You now no longer don't want it. You either want to sell it or you want to give it away to people, because you notice all of the tiny, tiny areas where you fluffed up a little bit and you could have done better, but you can't fix it because it's got that little splinter. It's got that little thing of where if you show this to someone, there's no way they would ever see it. And you point it out to them. And it's this really kind of push and pull, because then if someone criticizes that, you're like, how dare you? It's like you don't like this thing that you spend hours on, but then as soon as someone criticizes it and says, "Oh, well, that's got a little splinter chip there from when you tried to chamfer that," and you go,
"Hey,
yeah, very, very, very funky." And I found that applies to lots and lots and lots of makers, regardless of their fields.
So, printed by John says, "Am I looking at a new logo, Jake?
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah,
what do you have to say about it?
We're changing our branding. We're doing a whole bunch of corporate BS branding that Josh made us do.
You know, I just like to say, it is kind of BS, but also I think you're liking the process there, Jake.
I do a little bit. I'm doing
of the two of us.
One of our very good friends is an expert branding person. She's been doing it for like close to 3 decades now, and she's definitely helping us out.
Shout out Riz. If she ever does stop into the pod. But yeah, she I think if there's a designer amongst the two of us, and I would say neither one of us are great at design, but Jake, you are significantly better at designing than I am. My design
I appreciate it.
For some reason is just like, I know what I like when I see it, but creating it, forget it. And I've always had this thing where if I have to create a presentation or a slideshow and make it look good, it's the worst thing ever. I just do not like the process of making it look great, and therefore I am not good. So Jake,
that being said, you working on a hands-on physical project, design-wise, are fantastic.
Thank you.
It just seems to be a digital design where it's
digital design really gets me. And in another Maple Leaf Maker says they were talking about Reddit, and it was, I made this terrible, get out. That's the Reddit. And then my dad made this. amazing. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way
Showing
that
off
you
other
frame
people's
things
stuff.
on Reddit, just incredible. Yeah. So Derry said, I heard the most expensive logo is the one you pay the least for. Um, I think what the logo has meant, and I want to get into this. So Jake, we'll do some really, maybe the design of the logo live as well as a couple shorts. That'd be kind of fun.
I
But
will be. Yeah.
I would say the logo is honestly to me not that interesting. What's much more interesting than the logo and whatever logo it happens to be is the process you go through to arrive at the logo. And I
Mm.
think this is a distinction that not a lot of people understand, right? Because as you're thinking about a brand, you're thinking about more than just what are the colors and what does this thing look like. You're thinking about how do we want to communicate with people and what do we want our brand to represent and how, right? Like it's an entire process around thinking about how to, in our case, uplift other folks who are maybe new to CAD or new to 3D printing or give them additional skill sets aside from that. So as we're designing the logo, yes, there's the actual tangibility, the thing that appears on the page that you're looking at right here. But I would argue it's almost not interesting. But the process that you go through to get there is super interesting. Why do I
Mm.
like this blue and how does it resonate? And what specifically is it about this logo that hits me? And then we're able to go out and convey that to the world. What do you think about that, Jake?
I think logos are silly. Coming from someone who has spent a lot of time designing quite a few logos in my time and kind of researching the philosophy behind it, is there the person who designs the logo and the consumer, or whoever you'd like to call it, the looks of that logo, there is such a huge disconnect. I think I've talked about it on the pod before, but the Nike logo, which is arguably one of the most famous logos of all time, was made by a art student who was paid $35 for it, and he still has the receipt invoice. And apparently, when a lot of people in businesses come to design firms and they go, I want a logo that is simple and striking and strong and instantly recognizable, like the Nike logo. That Nike logo was made over the course of a weekend. They were paid a few hours for it, and I believe the CEO at the time hated it. And the design person had to basically make an argument. It's like, no, it's a swoosh. It's got motion. It's like a golf swing. It's like it's got movement and progression. And they went, but it doesn't say Nike. It doesn't have an N or any of the letters. It doesn't have anything to do with it. And they just said, I think this looks good. And fine. And now it's one of the most iconic ones of all time.
Right
So
alongside of it, right alongside that iconic, I think that's super insightful. Right alongside the iconic swoosh is actually the phrase, just do it. Because that's where I think Nike really nailed it. I think that's something we could apply to our community as well. Is if right
I was
when you're
just
looking
about to
into
say, how are you
design
going
and
to bring it
3D
back to
printing
CAD?
and well, the point is like do it. Do the thing. Start the business. Create the design. Solve the problem. Fix the thing. Right? Less talking, more doing. I think that this embodiment of just do it says everything in the fewest possible words that you would want to say to somebody that's just starting out. Is get going. What are you waiting for? Don't need permission.
Yeah.
Don't need to ask anybody for help. There's YouTube. I was thinking about this the other day too. I was like, I was really trying to break down my new process, which by the way, my process for learning things is evolving almost weekly right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, now my process is Google it, go to ChatGPT, go to YouTube, and then scan like Twitter, all four at the same time. And then I start to poke around and they all interact with one another, right? But I'm just thinking like, I am rapidly evolving with the way that I learn new things and how quickly I'm able to pick up a skill. Like I'm learning, teaching myself right now. One of the things I told you guys I want to design is an espresso machine. And I've acquired an espresso machine and I'm now teaching myself how to make lattes and latte art. And it's been tremendously satisfying to go through that process. And the process is some combination of all of these platforms going, what the heck do you guys do? And it's like rapid fire between them and discussions with ChatGPT, like, hey, this is what it looks like. And it's just fascinating to see it. So I went off on a bit of tangent there, Jake.
No, but I like it. I like our
Yeah.
tangents. But tangents are one of the best bits of education, I think. If you guys ever have a teacher or a professor who doesn't go on tangents, I feel bad for you. That's the best time that you can have in a classroom is when a professor goes, that reminds me of when I worked for Boeing. Let me go off about cold gas thrusters and how they're terrible. Rah, rah, rah. Not only do you get to kind of sit back and not do anything, but you're actually like, oh, this is actually great. This is, you couldn't pay for this information.
Totally.
Yeah. Anyway, to bring it back to CAD, we're going to be publishing a video, another long form video, on Friday. So it's going to be about how to design and 3D print and assemble a crypttext. I've made a short about it ages and ages ago. I actually don't have it on my table, annoyingly. It's essentially, if you remember the Da Vinci Code, it's a secret container. You have to put in a secret code or a series of letters. As soon as you do that, pops open. I've made a bunch of them in the past, and they all suck. All the ones on Printables or Thingiverse, all of them are terrible. Like I've made probably 5 of them. They either don't work, they glue themselves together, they're not satisfying, or they're so weak you can actually just crack it open with your hands. So this one is I did so many iterations on it. I say so many, 3. And it's to make it actually a great print. So if you want to make kind of an advanced geocache, or you want to make a present to stuff a bunch of money in and then give it to someone and they spend an hour trying to figure it out, cryptexts are a ton of fun. It is fully 3D printable, except for some bolts and some heat-threaded inserts, but super easy to get a hold of. I love this kind of project. And we're actually thinking about putting it in another Fusion book later down the line, but who knows? But what I want to do as far as all the content that we put out is just to make just cool stuff. Like, that's a bit of a life goal to me, is not to have a big house and a fast car and lots of money. I don't get too much satisfaction from the idea of that. But from just spending a life making cool stuff, I find immensely satisfying.
Well, you and I are like, we want money because we want to have a really nice workshop.
Yeah, to have a workshop.
I could see spending a bunch of money outfitting a shop exactly as I have it in my head, right?
But it's not millions of dollars.
No,
it's an incredibly localized. It's a reasonable amount of money. It's like, oh,
I would say
the nicest table saw I want is like a couple grand.
Exactly.
Like
so mine is like largely desktop versions of things, largely, right? Maybe a mill, maybe a Tormach mill, maybe. But like most of the stuff that I want is desktop size. Yeah. But it's like, it's the layout of it. It's walking in. It's having that whole, smell of sawdust and marshmallows because you have a laser cutter that's going all the time. Like, and
having a little Roomba cleaning up after you.
I don't know if I told you this, but when I was in New York and dreaming about becoming a maker, which for those of you who don't know, I was not always a maker. I did not make basically anything for most of my life until about 10 years ago.
Josh is actually a chemist that not a lot of people know.
That's right. And about, like 6, 7, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something like that, I stumbled across a channel called like How I Make Things, or Things Made Here. Somebody was basically running a blog, and they were showing off workshops, and the way they would show off people doing blacksmithing and woodworking and the lighting, and like, I had this vision in my head that I wanted a wood-fired stove and like orange amber lighting, and I wanted to walk in, like, I could physically imagine myself walking, and I would just fantasize about these people's workshops and being in one. And like, to this day, I've got this vision of like a wood-fired making maple syrup in the middle of the room, right, with my boiler that's heating up, that's like smelling the whole room full of this amazing scent, and I've got my table saw going because I'm making a play set for.
You're trying to cut firewood as fast as possible. You're like, why did I get such a big furnace?
Yeah, I just fantasized about it, and I've got that in my head. So when it comes to money, I'm like, that.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
That's all.
That's what I want. I want my coffee bean roaster, right? Let's have a big hopper, because I don't know if you've ever roasted coffee beans, but they smell horrendous. Horrendous.
I
terrible.
Cannot stand coffee. Cannot stand the taste of it.
The smell of coffee beans as you're roasting them is just so pungent and terrible. And there's this process they go through. It's really fun to roast them because the beans crack, and so they will start to make these popping noises. And then so people measure the amount of time they roast beans based on the first crack or the second crack. So if you roast them up to the first
this is Josh just being so obsessed with something, and he's so excited to get it.
This is how it goes. So,
And he's just
the
like, I've
first
got a
crack,
podcast.
if
I
you
can do
roast it
what
to
I
the
want.
first crack, then you're like a light roast, and past the second crack, it's like medium to dark roast. But this whole process is amazing. But I never could stand to do it because it was in my kitchen, and I was like, this is not acceptable on a cast iron or in a popcorn popper, which is a classic way to do it as well. So, anywho, Josh rant,
All right.
rented by John.
Yeah.
Rant over.
Josh, I think we need to leave it for next week.
We need to leave it for
back
next
up
week.
on your coffee
Yes.
brewing rant next week.
Yes. That is.
It's gonna start off
true.
next week with, "Hey, I'm Josh and I'm Jake. Oh my god, the lattes aren't coming out. I
Well, I'm
can't
gonna
make the little
Here's
arrow
what
for-
I'll try to do for next week. I will, just before I pop on the pod, I'll go and make a latte, and however it turns out is what you guys get to see. That's
Okay.
just what it's going to be.
It
I'll get
better
a
be good,
top-down shot. That's what it's going to be. But
It better
this has been the CADclass podcast. Thanks everybody for stopping by. Again, I'm Josh,
I'm Jake.
and we will
We'll
see
you guys
you
next
next week.